What's up, guys? Welcome to the WC Daily, the Walser Creative Daily. Today we're talking about unbranding your ministries in the context of social media. Let's roll that intro. All right, we're going to see if we can do this in one shot today. So let's talk about unbranding your ministries in the context of social media. What does that look like? There are mainly four big social media giants that we're going to talk about as we go through this today. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. And I mentioned Twitter in the smallest of senses. But let's talk about that because it's important, the way your churches represent themselves on social media and how your various ministries within your church represent themselves as well. It's a really interesting context, and this changes so fluidly. If you come back to me same time next year, I may feel differently about something that I say today. So yeah, keep that in mind. Let's start with Facebook. So there's been a huge shift in Facebook with reach regarding pages versus groups. That's really what I want to focus on with Facebook. I know a lot of churches have separate pages for their various ministries. I feel like that's not the best strategy concerning Facebook. And here's the reason I say that. There are a couple of drawbacks to having a page for your ministries versus having groups for your ministries. One is building a page audience is so incredibly difficult now. Organic reach has really been dialed back a whole lot concerning Facebook pages. There's really been a huge emphasis on groups. It's really hard to get the same amount of reach on a Facebook page that you used to be able to without doing paid advertisements. You constantly have to have somebody working to create that content for your page all the time, because a page has to have a lot of content to get the same amount of reach that it used to be able to create. And those things, they subtract away from a ministry when you have somebody in that ministry constantly having to create that content for those pages. At the same time, I know for a lot of smaller churches, you have maybe a one-person communication team or a two-person communication team. If you're lucky, you have more than that, you have more people. But for a lot of smaller churches, that's not very feasible for one or two people to create the content for all of those pages. So there are a couple of benefits to having a group over a page. One is the group has access to the total audience of the main church's Facebook account. And if you've been doing this for any set amount of time, I'm sure you'll understand that the main Facebook account for the church will probably most likely always have a greater audience than any specific ministry within the church. And the reason being is because ministries are for specific targeted markets of people. Your student ministry is for your students. Your single adult ministry is for your single adults. Your connection groups are for a larger part of your audience, but not everybody in your church. And then there are people outside of your church who are going to follow your church to see what's happening, what's going on. Because of that, a group has a much larger audience than a ministry page does. So take that into consideration when we talk about this. Groups also require far less content, in my opinion, than a page does. You can post to a group once a week or twice a week, whereas with a Facebook page, you really have to be generating a good amount of content to reap all of the benefits of having that page. In that same context, you can funnel your page's content into the group when it applies to that group. And there's just a lot of marketing benefits for having groups for your various ministries within your church versus having a separate page for every ministry. And because of the new group association with a page that kind of has come out over the past couple of years with Facebook, you can associate those groups with your main church's Facebook account. And it's just a much, much, much better system when it works that way, in my opinion. So that's first, and really that discussion needs to be had in the context of that. One of the ways that I show that benefits to a ministry leader when I'm presenting that to them is you know that you'll have a much wider audience, much better reach with what you're doing if you move to a group from a page. It requires much less work. You can focus more on ministry. You have a greater audience that you have a connection to, and it just helps you so much to do that versus having to manage a page all of the time. The second platform I kind of want to look at is Instagram. Instagram is a different animal for me. I do see the value sometimes in having separate accounts for your various ministries on Instagram because it's such a personal, photo-driven kind of thing. But I only see the benefit in having that if a ministry is producing enough photo content to really pump up that feed. Dead accounts on Instagram are like a pet peeve of mine. I do not like dead accounts on Instagram. And I really would push that there needs to be a system for handling that outside of Instagram, where if you have ministries that aren't producing enough content, but they are producing some content, that is somehow getting funneled to the main church account. A better system than having separate accounts for Instagram pages, and we just kind of touched on this week where I work, is using a hashtag associated with the main account for the separate ministries at your church. And I think that's a good strategy that kind of came up this week for us. I think it's a neat strategy to kind of think about and touch on, using a hashtag associated with a various ministry. Because of the way hashtags work now on Instagram, that allows you a feed that's very specific to that ministry. You can even follow that hashtag so that you're seeing just that ministry stuff in your post, but you're also seeing how that plays a part in the wider narrative of the church. That's Instagram for me. Twitter. Your church needs one Twitter account. One Twitter account. You only need one Twitter account. I would do a Twitter account for the main church. I would definitely have anybody who speaks, who has a platform as a pastor or a minister or a worship leader, they should have a personal Twitter profile. And the way I like to make Twitter work for churches is your church follows your various ministers who are part of your church, your pastors, your leaders, and you're retweeting that content that they're putting out. You know, those little tidbits of information, those really good quotes, as well as generating some other specific content. But I really like the Twitter content coming from personal accounts of those pastors and ministers who are on staff. And you're kind of picking and choosing that throughout the week to retweet that, to share that, to like it. So I kind of like Twitter to function that way. YouTube, let's talk about YouTube for 1 second. One YouTube account, kind of the same way as Twitter, except in this case, I like your various ministries having playlists where they can share that account. And that's kind of unbranding, bringing everything back under one church brand. That's kind of the structure I like for social media. It's the structure I like for communications, digital communications with a church. I think it works for a church. I think it centralizes everything again, and it allows you to produce more content associated with one account, which in the end is going to net you better results. That's my philosophy on unbranding your ministries in the context of social media, kind of bringing everything back under one identity. Everything is branded to the church. I think that grows your identity. I think that creates a strong, more cohesive brand in the long run. Thanks for watching, liking, commenting, and subscribing. I hope you found this video useful. I hope it helped you. And if you enjoyed it, please hit that like button for me. Hit that like button. Let me know you enjoyed it. And if you want to see more videos like this, hit subscribe. Thanks, guys, and I will see you tomorrow on the next WC Daily. Later.